Hello, friends. Today I take up a very different topic, and it doesn't come from any recent experience as such, but it comes from a conversation I had with a few friends on what is toxic leadership. I don't even know how that conversation started and why this topic of conversation came up. But thinking about it, I said, okay, let's do one episode on toxic leadership. What are the traits and how can one possibly avoid becoming a toxic leader? We undoubtedly, all of us know and we accept the fact that the best leaders are the ones who inspire their teams and help their organizations to achieve incredible results. Not any run of the mill. You can be successful, but if you're a great leader, you are going to drive your team and hence your organization. Remember that sequence. You're going to drive your team and hence the organization to some kind of success, which is really not imaginable. But while this is true of great leaders, we have, and we see plenty of them, and for some reason, they do succeed. That's the funny part, yes. We have the bad ones who draw the anger, who draw the ire of their direct reports. Their direct reports just don't like facing them. Okay, so they draw the ire of that, and they contribute to a toxic culture, which actually kills the motivation of the entire team as well as the organization on the whole. Anything a team does is what reflects on the organization. So, having defined the great leader and what a potentially toxic leader is like, let's take a look at some of the typical signs, typical traits that makes one a toxic leader. And let's try and see if we can have some pointers on how one can steer clear of these traits so that you go on to become a great leader. And when it comes to toxicity among leaders or why they are not considered great leaders, I personally believe that the prime, absolutely important trait criteria is that they are morally flexible. Okay, they are ethically challenged in the sense that integrity, which is the supreme trait of any great leader, is not really their strong point. Okay, and this particular thing is one of the primary signs of your leader or your whoever you are talking of not being a great leader. Moral flexibility is just not permissible. Okay, and a lot of times this happens because they are on such an ego trip that they believe that whatever decision they take is going to be accepted by everybody around without questioning it. And therefore, they tend to do this. But trust me, even if they don't question the decision, they're not very happy about it. And then that creates some kind of a gap between the relationship of the leader and his direct reports, especially, but on the whole team in general. So, to do the right thing, the leader needs to act with integrity at all times. Do the right thing at the right time in the right way, and this will help your team and your business to succeed. I would go to the extent of saying that if any leader is ethically challenged, if he is morally flexible, it is impossible for him to even be an effective leader, leave aside a great leader. So this is one of the key, or the key, in my opinion. A second trait is that they lack self-awareness. They not only do they lack self-awareness, they are scared of making a mistake. Okay, and therefore they try to avoid taking a decision. Now, what is the psychology behind it? The psychology is that if they don't take a decision, okay, that means, and if something goes wrong or not, they think they are not responsible. Okay, and therefore, when somebody is judging them, they cannot say that, okay, he took this decision which made a mistake. At the end of the day, he knows very well, and or he should be knowing very well, that his not taking a decision or taking a decision, the success or the failure is going to reflect on his performance without fail. I personally believe it is better to take a decision than to fail than not having tried it. Okay, so I mean, this is a no-brainer. So, yes, there are times when not taking a decision may be the appropriate solution at that stage, depending on where it is coming from, what is the stimuli behind that situation where he needs to take a decision. Okay, but this is not the rule. This is an exception to the rule. Okay, so if a leader lacks self-awareness, this avoidance is enhanced. And therefore, he needs to know himself very, very well. Okay. And a lot of times what happens is that this avoidance then makes you take a decision at the last minute where you do not have enough time to think about the pros, the cons, what can go wrong, what will go right, if it goes wrong, what to be done. So many questions will remain unanswered. Okay. And then what happens at that time is, by and large, they take a decision which is more often an emotional decision rather than a very rational. And naturally, I mean, there is more chance of failure. I'm not saying all of them fail, but there is more chance of failure when something like this happens. Okay. The next point I would like to raise here is about people who think that their power is supreme to the extent that they are narcissists. Okay. I think every leader needs to remember that leadership is a V game. Capital W, capital E. It's a V game. It's not a me game. Small m, small e. So if you remember that it's a V game, you are always going to carry your thing. A leader who plays the V game will not ignore ever his primary function. And what is the leader's primary function? It is to create a team and an organization where he leads them both, the team and the organization, to superlative success. Okay, so bad leaders are invariably narcissists. Okay, and they view themselves as the most important human being on earth. They believe that everything, especially their team and their organizations, rotate and revolve around them. While this is true, that's what a leader should be, but it's not that you let that ego get into the way of sane execution of your role. Okay. So when a leader is narcissist, what happens is that he loses the power of empathy, and therefore his relationships deteriorate with the team on the whole. Okay. Most people will judge you at all times. In fact, all people will judge you at all times. And don't ever believe that people judge you wrongly, or you, by putting up a facade, you are not being judged truly by your team members. Okay. So if you don't have that interest at heart, if a narcissist says everything is about me, all he's thinking about is himself and his success. So if you don't have their success and their well-being in mind, trust me, you're a lousy leader. I go lousy, yes. Okay. Because while you are supposed to look after yourself, I mean, that's a given, but as a leader, it becomes your responsibility. And depending on the situation at times, it is your responsibility to care more about the team than about your personal development in certain situations. Okay, so ultimately, if you are this kind of a leader, the organization and the team both fail. There is no way you can get success. Okay. Another thing I have seen, which is a challenge because it upsets all the team members except the ones who are getting a benefit out of it. And this is about nepotism and favoring and creating the blue-eyed boys club. This is something that you're telling others that, okay, what you do, how you perform does not make sense or is not important. You have to be related to me or you have to be my favorite. Okay. Now, what happens with this kind of people is that they then end up having only yes men around them. And these yes men do not think of the organization or the team. All they think about is their being in the good books and hence getting the promotions and the raises and whatever else from the boss. Okay. And invariably, this leads to a situation where incompetent people are promoted. Not every blue-eyed boy or not every, in fact, most of the time, blue-eyed boys become blue-eyed boys because they're yes men. It's not always about their work. And it's the same thing with relatives. They are promoted only because you are mine, not because you are performing for the organization. So these are challenges which will need to be addressed. Okay. There is another trait which is challenging and which leads to bad leadership. I don't know whether it will really fall into the category of toxic, but who are unaware and they do not understand what we call the action imperative. It is necessary to take action at the right time. By delaying decision making and taking a decision way later than the opportune moment was as good as not taking a decision. You will miss many business opportunities. You will miss many opportunities to bond with your team and to get the respect which you would have if you took decisions on time. And I have seen this happen so often. Even when I was working, I've seen so many cases, instances where the decision is taken at a time where it misses the opportunity. Okay. You need to remember that you are creating a team and appointing those people to be a part of the team because of what they bring to the table, because they have the relevant experience or the expertise or ideally both to contribute. Now, if you are going to put them down, okay, and not take a decision so that they can function properly, what good is it appointing such great people? So you need to think about that. So we've looked at some of these traits just to quickly recap. Some of the things are inconsistency with the truth, avoidance, narcissism, nepotism or playing favorites, procrastinating decision making. But there are a few others. So let's quickly look at them and how you can possibly avoid it. Okay. Arrogance. I mean, we've spoken about this indirectly, but upfront, do not be arrogant. You may have wield a lot of power, but use that power judiciously. Arrogance, I believe, is just a delusion, and which leads you to believe and get super confident on everything that you do without really bothering to check whether what you are doing is the right thing and is it going to bring the desired results that you have been wanting to make. If you don't see the errors that you are making, how are you going to go ahead? And not seeing the errors is arrogance because you think everything you do is right. Okay. So leaders who are confident and who are not toxic are very comfortable with accepting the fact that they do not know certain things or that they make an error at times. This lets you correct yourself. This lets you learn. It lets you learn even from team members. They don't have to be somebody who's above you in the hierarchy. They have to be somebody who knows more than you on that particular topic. Okay? So, arrogance, discrimination. If you discriminate against certain team members, it is going to be a problem. It is necessary to be aware, even if you have some kind of an unconscious bias. You might discriminate and say, okay, I don't want women to this thing. There are times when there is a rational decision behind doing something. Now, if there's some task that perpetually calls for very hard labor or staying late into the night or maybe even overnight sometimes, yes, there will be some criteria you set, but you're not discriminating. You might say, I don't want a woman employee there, just to give you an example, because of the night shift. Or today, that also doesn't hold true. Let me be very, very honest with you. But there are situations in which that kind of, and that is not discrimination, in which that kind of a barrier or a level that you set is justifiable. Incompetence. An incompetent leader has no right to lead. I am not saying, or this is not to say, that a leader must know everything. No. But as I mentioned in one of the earlier episodes, I think just last week, that a startup founder needs to know everything. He can't get away with saying, I don't know numbers. That doesn't work. The same way, a leader should have his core competencies, which may be just about leading. He has no clue about production or manufacturing. Fair enough. Okay, but he needs to know how to lead a team and he needs to know the basics of that processes that the product follows or is required for manufacturing. Okay, so you cannot be incompetent to that extent. Bullying. I have seen so many leaders bully their way through, not working. In such a situation, you need to take a step back and remove that habit and replace it with something better. We just talked about being a team player, so I'm not going through it. Micromanagement. I think it's one of the most toxic things that one can do. You are employing somebody, you are training him because he has a certain expertise, and you are breathing down his neck all the time, telling him what to do every second of the day. What is that? It doesn't make sense. Self-awareness, we already spoke of. Inconsistency with the truth. I'm repeating this because according to me, this is the most important criteria. Avoidance, narcissism, these are all the things that you need to take care of. Okay. So the faster you get over all of this and work on it, the faster you're going to be on your way to become a leader, a true leader. And as these habits get demolished and the right habits come into place for each of these traits, you are going to be a great leader. So here's to your becoming a great leader. Any questions, please get back to me. All my startup friends who I've been flooded with messages. Okay. And well, as usual, over the weekend, I shall devote some time and get it done. Thank you. Have a great day, and I'll see you in the next episode.